Why do some men act like a woman's orgasm is the only measure of success in bed?
And why do so many guys take it personally if it doesn't happen?
And how different is sex for men versus women? We're diving into a big topic today. Welcome to Talkin' Sexes, where we break down gender, relationships, and society with a little bit of wit and a whole lot of real talk. I'm Jennifer Marie.
And I'm A. Pereira. We're here to tackle the questions everybody's asking, whether they admit it or not.
From love and dating to the unwritten rules of masculinity and femininity, no topic is off limits.
And just so we're clear, this isn't about us versus them. It's about how we all navigate the world through different perspectives.
So, whether you're a man, woman, or just trying to figure it all out, pull up a chair because we've got a lot to talk about.
Let's get into it.
Sex. Sex is one of the most talked about things in everywhere, right? And sex and orgasm and it's so important to everyone, I guess, in some ways, especially when it comes to men. And I wanted to dive into this topic today. It's these are some of the most raw, open conversations he and I will probably ever have. And I lay it all on the table, and I'm about to tell you about my sex life, past and future, today. So let's get into what's going to be a really fun topic.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, I love it. So, where does this pressure come from to create an orgasm? How does gender influence that sexual expectation? And how is sex and intimacy shift over time through my transition? Those are the types of things that I want to talk about today. So, where do you think this pressure comes from, A?
Porn, just like right off the bat, like porn. How you watch. Where do we get this sex narrative to begin with? Honestly, porn. Nobody's, again, all these topics we talk about, nobody's teaching us these things. How do men experience pleasure? How do women experience pleasure? Very different, but we're not taught. So I feel like a lot of it comes down to what we're watching and what we're taking in and how we're internalizing that.
100%. If men think if she orgasms, I did my job. And I think it boils down to porn and conversations and everything that we've had throughout our lives. And let's not even just get anytime you can go to porn, right? Let's go to talk about movies and their sex scenes or just even this love passionate. She has to be moaning to be having pleasure and this heightened moaning, right? And I think we've all seen that. And back when I was living as a man, it was exactly like that. I really struggled with when I was married to my wife. I felt like I was not fulfilling my job. She was like, "Oh, it's okay," because she was new to sex, and so she had never didn't know what to expect, and so maybe that kind of worked out well for me in the end. I knew that she wasn't getting the heightened feeling that I wanted her to have, and it was like wanting my partner to have that experience. But it was also like, as a man, I felt like I needed to fulfill that role, and I needed to fulfill that it was a reflection on me in this way that I needed to give her an orgasm, or it wasn't going to make me feel less of a man. So we had a really hard sex life. It was very challenging for me to perform and all of it. And turns out I had to learn the hard way many years later. There's a reason why, because I was a woman and that was not where I was supposed to be in the end. But obviously, we worked enough. I have two kids, so it worked out okay. But it was really a challenge, and I really did feel like I had this goal that I needed her to orgasm, and I was going to make sure it happened. I'm not sure if I ever did, but I think you have to realize that there's way more to intimacy than an orgasm.
And I'd like to think of sex can be intimate, but honestly, sex and intimacy can be two very different things sometimes, in my opinion.
Very, very much so.
Because even when you think about the way culture installs our mind about sex, whether it be from movies, porn, whatever it might be, like you're saying, I just feel like even in those scenes and you see these women getting penetrated, their dolls, does it really look like they enjoy that? Does it really look like they're actually having an orgasm? Because those women could be in pain. They could be faking it. They could be like, I just want this over, I'm getting paid. But that's what we get installed in our mind, and then we take to a bedroom, and it's like, well, I just gotta pound her until she orgasms. Well, what if pounding doesn't actually make her orgasm? And then it goes back to what we were talking about on the last episode. Don't assume, connect. Instead of assuming what your partner wants or assuming what they like, why aren't we having these conversations before we even go into the bedroom? And that, I feel like I learned a lot of that narrative from being queer and having to have those deeper conversations with partners. When you're more cisgendered and the binary of man and woman, you're not really thinking to have those conversations too. Because I didn't start having those conversations, honestly, until I met my wife, and then we started to talk about it. And that's because she was previously married to a cis man and had experienced all of that, and intimacy to her was really important moving forward. So it forced us and encouraged us to have those bigger conversations and explore intimacy in new ways. The only way I actually changed my mind from culture sex talk and orgasm talk is looking into tantric sex, if anybody knows what that is. It's really just getting in tune with your partner on the other side and being able to like, take deep breaths. And I'm not kidding. You could watch videos, you could look into this yourself, and people can literally orgasm from breathing together.
Wow.
You could orgasm from being in the same room, looking at someone you're attracted to, and spending intimate time breathing together and getting into it. And you can have a full blown orgasm from that. So if
That
that
is,
doesn't change your mind about sex, I don't know what will. Because that blew my mind. I was like, no fucking way.
I have never heard that in my life. That is so crazy. It's so amazing. And it shows intimacy. But I want to get back to what you said, where talk about sex versus intimacy. And there's two totally very different things. And I think men and women have at least have thoughts about those two totally different things, right? Men even more so because life is about sex. I think it's about that we talked about in episode 2 that sex is so interesting because men just have this need to have sex all the time, right? But women have needs too, right? I like your point about communication because whether it's sex or intimacy, there should be way more communication going on. And it really helps both partners.
Even if you are going into just bang for because you're stressed or whatever reason, if you communicated before, at least you guys are going in with the same goal. We're just fucking. We're moving on today. Great. Maybe tomorrow we want to connect emotionally, and that will be great too. But the communication could change everything. And like, even just allowing to understand like, whoever you're with, what they actually like, and what pleases them and what arouses them because it is going to be person by person. It's not going to be super generic. All women are this way or all men are this way. Not how it is at all. Every person arouses differently and is pleased differently. And everybody deserves that time and attention to ask those questions and be nurtured in an intimate way. Men and women. Because there's lots of things that men like that they're not going to talk about.
So true. And I like your point about the individual experience because I think we need to move past this men and women thing all the time and be more about how each person has different needs, different kinks, different things. And if we're open about them and share them, I think that experience is better. It allows people to know what you need, want, and how you receive pleasure the best. And that's something that I've done in my recent life of having more open conversations with people, and whether that is intimacy or sex. And it really does help. I wanted to jump back to something that you said about the queer experience changing the narrative for you. And I think I wanted to point out that I think one of the most amazing things about transition, or maybe it's just coming out and or identifying yourself as part of the queer community in one way or another, the best thing about it in one way is it makes you deconstruct everything in your life. Everything, whether that is some people deconstruct religion, and I have done that and actually grown closer to God in that way. I'm very open about that. But it also makes you look at everything in your life and about where I had all these expectations and I had all of these gender norms, and it makes you just rethink everything and it allows you to reset. And I think it's an important thing for cisgender people too, right? And straight people, right? Think about everything you've been told and think, why was I told this? And I think that's one thing we're trying to do with this podcast is deconstruct all types of things in this world, because just because you were told it, does that mean it's the truth? I wanted to talk about another fun topic within the sex world, right? Is women faking orgasms. It's super common, right? And sometimes it's a fake it till you make it kind of thing, right? But I think women tend to do this for men because if he's not there, I feel like they can feel that energy where they know that man is needing that, and it gets them more excited and things, right? And honestly, it's kind of true. I know when I was living as a man, I know that when she was breathing heavier, it made everything better. And it made me more into it and all of it. I think sometimes men can tell and does hurt. That does not help the libido in that way, in my opinion, as much. Sometimes the guys can kind of fake it in their mind too. She's into this kind of thing or whatever. But I think we need to move past this overall of, again, having the orgasm and women faking it, because when we fake it, we've dismissed it. And especially if you can fool the man or whatever, you're the one who's missing out now. You're the one that has set this expectation where he doesn't have to work as hard, or you don't have to do it in this way. And I think when there's that better communication, as we talked about, that is where there is more pleasure. There's more pleasure in general, right?
Absolutely. I agree.
So I talked a little bit about my sex life. How has your sex life changed within your transition?
Yeah, I feel like right now in my life, where I am right now, I'm probably the most like comfortable and aligned and like confident I've ever been in the bed and in sex, because I feel like up until now, I just really didn't understand my place in bed as somebody that's been more gender fluid, been more masculine as a girl, and grew up as a lesbian pretty much my whole life, I would say. I came out at 16 years old, so I've always dated girls, slept with girls, and through this whole ride, I haven't felt enough in bed. The same narrative that everybody's taking on in like the cis and straight world. I'm not good enough in bed if I don't have a wiener. She's not gonna be pleased because that's the only way she's gonna have an orgasm. Which I am a woman. I was assigned woman at birth. I also have a vagina, and I should know these things. But because culture tells me these things, I believe these things. So just back to the question you asked, like, is it actually true? A lot of the things I've learned about sex are not actually true. But it took me all the way up until I met my wife and got married and started having these deeper conversations about sex and actually communicating these things. And up until this point, I've been very insecure in bed. I didn't understand what I was doing, my place, and a lot of the time I wasn't even present. I wasn't even able to connect. Let me just get in and get this over with. Let me make sure, just like a dude, let me get in and make sure that she has a great time in an orgasm. Don't give a care if it happens to me. And so that was pretty much my sex life up until I got married. And then I was willing to open doors and explore more because I was with a partner who saw me more for my soul than my body parts and things like that. Because up until my wife as well, in the bed, all of my relationships, I dated straight girls. I was that masculine lesbian that was like, I wanted to be with straight girls. I don't know what that is, but I understand that now because I'm a trans man and I wanted to experience my relationships in that binary kind of way. But back then I was like, I'm just a cool lesbian that could get all the straight girls and watch me. I did not understand it back then, but now I do. So because of that as well, and knowing that a lot of my partners were with men before or had experienced that, I just never felt like I was up to par for all of those experiences that they had, which could not be further from the truth. It was all in my head all along. But because of these things going on in my head so much all of the time, when we got to the bedroom, like I said, I was just not there. I wasn't present. I wasn't even thinking about what was going on. I was just closing my eyes, waiting for it to almost be over. Now in the bed, it's a completely different experience. The best sex I've ever had because I'm so connected to myself, and I'm actually present, and I'm connecting with my wife, and things are just completely different in bed than what they were before. And when I'm going into bed to have sex, we're not going into bang, like we all of these things we're talking about on the show, those are all things that me and my wife actually do and apply in our sex life. And that's why it's gotten so good, is because we've had these conversations, we've taken our time, we've explored what she likes and what I like, and we've just taken that time to do that. So now my sex is the best it's ever been. It's been a really confusing life when it comes to sex, if I'm being honest, but
It
it's
sounds like it.
a lot more clear for me, and I'm gaining a lot more confidence in it. But it's been so confusing, honestly, up until I came out again and I got married to my wife. That's what changed my sex life.
It sounds like your sexual journey has been a roller coaster,
It really has.
and it's really and it's interesting. I think you talked about how you felt like you needed the straight girls, right? And you wanted to bang them, right? Well, that is so interesting because that is gender norms, right? That is something like you didn't know you were a trans man at that point, right? You were falling into those gender norms, and I think we're deconstructing those and helping people find their balance within even that. And it's just so interesting to me. That's so cool. Um,
One more thing I do want to mention real quick too. My sex life, it just felt wrong a lot of the time as well. A woman wanted to like touch me and penetrate me, but that just never felt right. It felt wrong. It felt like it just in the trans experience, just I don't know how to explain it to somebody that doesn't experience it themselves. So the only way I can explain it is like, those are the moments where I actually feel like I was like, maybe in the wrong body at those times, because I just can't handle it. Even when it comes to putting a tampon in for your monthly cycle as a woman, that even was just uncomfortable and wrong for me. I just felt like nothing should go in there. And so the way that I was pleased before, I would only let people touch my clit and like, jack it off. It was like a little wiener, basically. And but as you get on testosterone, you do experience bottom growth. So it can be this, a lot of trans guys like to call it their little schlong, because it does turn into a little schlong with bottom growth. I don't know if you're aware of that.
you can see my face. I am shocked because had no idea that changed with testosterone. That is freaking beautiful.
It is
Absolutely.
actually, and a lot of people don't know about it, but a lot of trans guys gain a lot of like confidence from it because it does turn into this little thing that we can use. It's interesting. But anyways, before I even experienced bottom growth, that's really how I treated my vagina and clit. I just treated it like it was like this little dick, honestly. Because if a woman tried to like go inside or anything, I'd be like, no, this is just immediate rejection. Just this is wrong. This shouldn't be in here. This doesn't feel right. There's no pleasure for me here. Get this out of me, like kind of thing.
Do you
Like
think that
I don't feel like I experienced sex like women did. I just didn't understand it. It's really interesting. And those
so
were the
interesting?
moments where I felt like maybe I was in the wrong body. But even now, retransitioning and getting more aligned and feeling more comfortable in the bed, now I don't feel so attached to those things that I was attached to. Now that I've accepted myself and learned to embrace it, now, great. Sometimes we have our options and we can use whatever we want in bed, or we could be more natural and enjoy this as well. We now have options to work with, and every that I do in bed, now I'm confident with. So it's not like I need something to please her. I can just use myself in my natural body, and that works too. And it's taken me a really long time to get comfortable with all of this, but I can confidently say I'm comfortable with all of it now. So it's been a very confusing, interesting process, but
Amazing.
got here.
And I can't
That's
imagine
just
that our listeners have not learned
amazing.
so much from you just within that. Absolutely.
A
That's
lot of people don't know about bottom growth, but it is definitely something of the trans man experience.
I didn't know that. And a lot of cis people don't know about women's top growth, right? They think you have to have
Mhm.
breast augmentation to have breasts. And no, I have a full B cup just naturally on 2.5 years of HRT right now. So on those hormones. So it's interesting how much your body changes just by putting the hormone in it that your body needed all along. Right?
Wow. That is interesting. I didn't know that part either.
You didn't
So
know that?
no, I did not.
That's so interesting.
That's why I'm here too, to learn about you guys and the trans woman experience. I learned a lot by sitting here with you. It's fascinating.
It's so interesting. And we'll tell you another one for me because we're both super open on this show, right?
Yeah.
For trans women, I'm not going to say as a whole because Some can still use their equipment, but a lot of us, a lot of men want to approach, but they like the idea that they could be the bottom with a trans woman. When it comes to me, it doesn't really move anymore. It's shrunk and everything too. And people always go, do you even have pleasure anymore? Or do you really have anything? And I'm like, my sex life is better than it ever has been in that way, right? The experience is more sensual. It's more about rubbing. I tell people the easiest way to understand it is just treat it like a clit. That's how I see it. And until it's gone, that's how we treat it. And if you don't, then you get out the door. And it's really even more so about an emotional experience for me. I don't just go have sex with random strangers. I'm on Tinder, and honestly, I really avoided going on Tinder for a long time, just because of the stigma that's there. And I have had men just kind of like want that interaction. I say, that's not me, and just move along. But really, it's about that emotional connection and needing that connection for me. And oh my gosh, yeah, I orgasm more than I ever have, and it lasts longer. And even by myself, it's amazing. What's interesting is for men, I think it's important to talk about how, in the end, it's so easy to ejaculate and orgasm in that way. And so men have this need of that they need to fulfill this need. They know it's not going to be as easy, but they know that feeling, right? Well, women have a different feeling, right, within it. It kind of builds, and they have this natural progression. And maybe you don't always have to have the orgasm for a woman to enjoy it. That's how it is for me. It's not like I don't have to be fully released in that way or whatever it was before. And that's so interesting, just how it's been so different for me. Not only do I have way less thoughts about sex than I did back when I was on testosterone and living as a man and all of it, right? And some of that's gender norms, and some of that is hormones. Like hormones, I really do believe that being on testosterone really heightens the sex drive, right? And I think it's even proven through men that add tea. That's why you add tea, because it increases sex drive and it increases performance and all of it, right? And again, the idea that people want to talk about hormones for us not being allowed ever, well, if we're not allowed to take hormones, then they shouldn't be allowed to either, right? So I think that's a different kind of topic, but I like to kind of drop in a little bit too. But I think it's just interesting how different it was before and how different it is now. But it all comes back to communication in the end, and how we can focus on fulfilling your partner's needs and what they want, rather than just having a goal that you just got to orgasm or it's not good enough. You'll get there. And I think through the communication, I think people will get there more.
Absolutely. I think that's really what it comes down to in this episode is that communication and identifying what sex means to you and what pleasure means to you and giving yourself that time to explore that. Because I don't think a lot of us give ourselves that time to explore what does sex mean to you and how do I get aroused and what pleases me. And I feel like even that in itself is so stigmatized that it can almost be shameful to even ask yourself those questions when it really should not be shameful to explore your sexuality. Whether you're cis, questioning, queer, whoever you might be, you should be able to ask yourself, what do I want in the bed and how the heck am I going to get it? And go get it. Because once
Yeah.
you know, that's all that it takes is going to find it and communicating it.
It takes a lot of exploration and moving past shame within that to be able to find what you need and what you want. I'm very clear about what I need and what I want. And I think I am more than ever. And I don't that's deconstruction within like thinking about everything and all being brand new in this way. Or if that's just me as a woman. I don't know. What do you think?
I think the answer to that is alignment, baby. I think you're getting more aligned. I think you're knowing yourself and allowing yourself to get clear on who you are and what you want and allowing yourself to move that way. And that's so powerful. And that's exploration for you. That's allowing yourself to do the work and ask those questions and getting close to that alignment. So I think I think this is a really good thing for everybody to think about, honestly. Because one more thing about sex is a part of our identity. And we all have the right to self identify those things, and sex is a part of that identity. And if we're not allowing ourselves to explore ourselves sexually, we are rejecting a part of our identity. And that can come out in all kinds of different ways externally and manifest into your relationships, into your work life. It can manifest into the way that you see yourself, talk to yourself. It can affect the way that you're motivated or not motivated. I just really want the listeners to consider that sex is a part of your identity that requires your self exploration and self identification. And it's not something that we can look at a movie or a porn scene or go on the web and see what women like or what men like. You cannot find your sexual desires and your sexual identity outside of yourself. You can use those things to, of course, explore and see what resonates, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you really have to give yourself that space and grace to figure out how you operate sexually and be proud of it. No shame. That's the hardest part, is because there is so much shame pushed on the sexual experience, especially as women. So remove that shame and figure it out and then go get it out in the world.
You know what? What's crazy to me about as you were talking about this, I'm thinking about people repressing sex because we need to look at sex as it's a need, it's not a want. And I've never been Catholic in any way, right? But it makes sense that people who repress sex, it's going to come out in other ways. And unfortunately, that's why there's a lot of issues within the Catholic Church when it comes to sex. And that's something that I really have never even thought about until now, because it's not something that I've had to really think about. But as you're talking about this, I'm thinking people who repress sex are missing out on something, and it really does affect you and change something about you and fulfilling that need. It's a natural need that our bodies need and want. I think whether that is intimacy, which I think everybody, both men and women, probably just about everyone wants to have that intimacy, but sometimes we fulfill that in a quick way at times because it's the easy way. It's an easy route, but that's wild. And when you think about how there's such a need, and we need to reshape that. We need to reform this idea that sex is just you want to have sex. No, it's a need, and we need to fulfill your partner's needs too. So make sure you are continuing that. I talk to a lot of people online that are gender diverse, especially. That's who I talk to, right? And I haven't had sex in 20 years. And I'm like, I don't understand that. I understand there's so many people as they get older and things, they lose that connection. And I think people find it other places. No wonder why people cheat all the time, right? Because you're not receiving that need. And be there for your partner. If you're not having sex, I encourage you right now, go find a way, make a cute date, do something. Even more so, go communicate with your partner. Go talk to them about, do you have a need that I'm not fulfilling? And how can I meet your need better? I think you'll be surprised. What a great conversation today. I think it's important for us all to, like I said just now, there's a need versus a want when it comes to sex. And orgasm is not the only measure of sex. Let's move past that and have better communication. I would love to hear from you all in the comments. You can be anonymous. Share about your sex life. Share about what this looks like for you and your partner, or what you want it to look like for you and your partner. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts on anything we said or something that came up for you during this episode. Please continue to connect with us and just be part of that conversation. That's a wrap for this episode of Talkin' Sexes. If you love the conversation, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next.
And we want to hear from you. Got a burning question or a hot topic you want us to tackle? Go to the SpeakPipe link in the show notes and leave us a message on our answering machine.
Who knows? Your question might just be the next big debate.
And before we go, a quick disclaimer. We're both entrepreneurs, but we're not here in a professional capacity. Everything that we share is based on our experiences and opinions, not professional advice. And as trans people, we want to be clear. We do not speak for the entire community. Everyone's journey is different and everyone is valid.
So take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and keep the conversation going.
Until next time, keep talking, keep questioning,
and keep breaking the rules.